Yeah.
Notogenesis, right? So noto for notochord, and genesis meaning the formation, right? So here we're going to be talking about the formation of the notochord. So just a quick definition. So the development of the notochord, which, like we mentioned numerous times, are rod-like structure going to be situated between more or less the ectoderm and the endoderm, right? But remember, sorry, between the ectoderm and endoderm, right? So what's between the ectoderm and paraxial mesoderm is going to be the neural tube, all right, not the notochord, all right? So just differentiate that real quick. All right, so between the ectoderm and endoderm, that is essential for the development of the nervous system and the primitive skeletal structures. As it relates to its location, the notochord migrates along that of the primitive streak, right? And making up that feature craniocaudal axis, right? Head and tail axis, and ends at the precaudal plate, right? And it's a part of the axial mesoderm. So the process, in quick summary, so it occurs during weeks between week 3 and 4, along the same time of the development of that trilaminar disc. The epiblast cells in this case would migrate from the primitive node and extend towards the head to form the notochordal process. That notochordal process margins, right? The notochordal process margins, the margins of the notochordal process, it would converge, right? So all of that just means the neural folds in which this case, right? They will converge until it merges together, right? So remember that the tutti frutti ice cream, right? How those neural folds will then merge together and eventually bud off and become that rod-shaped notochord. Derivatives. Notochord then degenerates during the course of embryogenesis. The nuclei pulposi, this is just plural, right? Nuclei pulposi of the intervertebral discs are remnants of the notochord, right? So what's the remnant of the notochord? Nucleus pulposus. Everyone good? So just to quickly reiterate the notochord, um, it's an extended column of midline cells lying immediately ventral to the what you call the floor plate of the central nervous system and extending from the hypophysis to the end of the spinal cord. It's important for inducing the neural plate, the ventral region or motor region of the brain and that of the spinal cord, as well as the sclerotome portion or somites to form the vertebrae. And finally, the major signal molecule for these phenomena is the sonic hedgehog. Okay. All right. So, as promised, here's the diagram of the nuclear pulposus, right? So you can see it's a remnant of what was the notochord. All right. You can forget everything, all the other labels there. So I just highlighted what you have to be aware of. Okay. So this is where it gets fun. All right, let's begin. So some mesenchymal cells, they migrate cranially, that is towards the head, right? So let's just take this diagram, for example. So right here is going to be cranial, right here is going to be caudal. Okay, so some mesenchymal cells migrate cranially from the primitive node and the primitive pit, right? So from this portion here, so migrate in this direction, forming a median, right? Median in the middle, median cellular cord, right? Called the notochordal process. So you can see this notochordal process right here. This process, this notochordal process, it soon acquires a lumen, right? And this is the lumen, right? So if you have a circle, right? In between that circle is going to be a lumen, right? So you should be familiar with that already. So you're gonna have, like, let's say if you take a cross section of your digestive tract, right? Let's take a colon. It's a circle, and inside that circle is gonna be lumen. Okay. So it soon acquires a lumen, and that lumen is what they call is gonna create this canal, right? So they call that notochordal canal. So you can see that here. Um, this diagram D is just at this level, right? So they just cut here and they look at it from this direction, right? And they flip it for you. So you can see here, identified here you have your neural plate, which is here, all right? This here is going to be the canal that we later formed, or the inscribed yellow area there is going to be that notochordal process, which is this, right? Don't know why they use that color, but I guess to differentiate. And then all the red is going to represent that intra-embryonic mesoderm, right? And here you can see allantois and the precaudal plate going to be this region, right? So eventually, moving on, we're going to talk about each and every one of these labels, okay? So everyone okay with this slide? Any questions? Anything to go over? Okay, so the mesenchymal cells are just going to refer to simply mesoderm cells. All right, so I could just scratch that and just think mesoderm cells. Okay. All right. Any more questions? Oh, take silence as content. Okay, let's go. So we spoke about this notochordal process, right? So the notochordal process, it grows cranially between the ectoderm, right? So just for easy identification of which is which layer, I just highlighted the colors to the diagram associated with the word, right? Right. So this notochordal process, remember we said here is cranial, here is caudal, right? So it grows between that of the ectoderm in blue and the endoderm in yellow until it reaches this area here, which we call the precaudal plate. All right. So I just put these colors just to show you all that the notochordal process is going to reach the precaudal plate, and to show that this precaudal plate is made up of the ectoderm and the endoderm, right? With the colors. So hopefully you'll appreciate that. Right, so this precaudal plate is a small circular area of columnar endodermal cells where the ectoderm and the endoderm are fused, right? Hence the two colors there. All right. Um, so yeah, let's just quickly look at this diagram, right? So here we have the amnion, right? We have the bilaminar embryonic disc before we have any mesoderm involvement. We have this connecting stalk. Here will be the yolk sac or umbilical vesicle. And then looking at this now, so it's like, oh my gosh, sorry. Apologies, my computer is rather slow. Okay, let's see if we can do this again. All right, good. So this diagram here, all right, it's basically comes from this section, right? So if you just take like a cross section just there, right? So it kind of excludes the the endoderm layer, right? So this is just showing everything in the ectoderm, right? Remember we said that the primitive streak is going to be developed on the ectoderm layer, right? So that's this diagram here, looking from above down. All right, I remember, you see how it forms this guitar-shaped kind of pick, right? Wide at the cranial end, but narrow at the caudal end. All right, so everything's coming together now, okay? So here we see the precaudal plate here, developing the midline, notochordal process, which is under the ectoderm, right? So remember, all that would develop underneath the ectoderm. You can see that here, right? Right there, underneath the ectoderm, between the two layers, right? So that's after you have the migration of the ectodermal cells forming that mesoderm, right? So notochordal process under the ectoderm. We see here we have the primitive pit and the primitive node here, and the cloacal membrane down here, all right? And B, all right, so you're gonna exclude this for now. Embryonic endoderm, the allantois, see not as defined, right? So we'll talk about that later. Connecting stalk, this is the primitive pit here, notochordal process, and ectoderm, okay? So just to go through the labels. All right, everybody good? Well, okay. Neural crest cells, we will see that later. All right, just taking it one step at a time. All right, so moving on. So the precaudal plate, all right, the precaudal plate, it gives rise to the endoderm of the oropharyngeal membrane, all right, located at the feature site of the oral cavity. So you can see here we have that the precaudal plate to be in this, okay, look, you can see it here, right? It gives rise to the endoderm of the oropharyngeal membrane, all right? So from precaudal plate to oropharyngeal membrane. Remember in earlier I said with the arrows we have the precaudal plate that's going to be in between there. Yeah, so it goes from wherever was above to the oropharyngeal membrane to the mouth. All right. So the precaudal plate, it serves as a signaling center, and we have that sonic hedgehog and another one called PAX-X, right? PAX 6, PAX-6, sorry, and that controls development of cranial structures. Right? Nothing too important here to remember, right? So the most important thing here, I just wanted to show you all, that the precaudal plate would eventually become the oropharyngeal membrane. Also, you ought to appreciate it. All right. So these mesenchymal cells from the primitive streak, they migrate laterally and cranially, right? So remember that previous diagram. They migrate laterally and cranially amongst other mesodermal cells between that of the ectoderm and the endoderm, right? Until they reach the margins of the embryonic disc, right? So this here will be one margin and this here will be the other margin. Now you see and notice with this diagram as well, we have two bilateral embryonic discs, one at the cranial end and one at the caudal end, and it left behind the intraembryonic mesoderm in the middle. All right. So what happened is that the cells, as they go down into this trench that Ryan described, right, it will migrate laterally and cranially this way too, right, and then it would develop that connection and it would become continuous with the extraembryonic mesoderm, which surrounds and covers the amnion as well as the umbilical vesicle.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.